I selected the recipe croque monsieur from the country of France. When I was in high school, I took a French course, and my teacher used to talk about this meal frequently as a staple dish, but I have never tried it. I have never been to France, and I don't speak the language, but I thought this would be a nice dip back into the world of French cuisine. Some facts about France's food and beverage culture that I thought were interesting is that approximately 10 billion baguettes are consumed by the French each year, and the country was reported to produce about 16 million baguettes per day. In France, dinner is typically eaten at home between 7:30 and 8:45 p.m., and most restaurants do not begin dinner service until 8 p.m. I can't imagine eating dinner that late, especially since the French don't often snack between their meals. Hunger before meals is said to increase their satiation with the meal, but personally, I do not like being hungry. According to A to Z World Food, the tradition of serving meats and vegetables with hearty sauces dates back to the Middle Ages, when strongly flavored sauces were developed to mask the flavor of rancid meat. This is an interesting origin for their dishes, as most come with a sauce. It's interesting to me as well, because French cuisine is known to be elevated and fancy, and this humble beginning juxtaposes that fact. The recipe I chose is eaten mostly in Paris. It's consumed as a cafe meal, an everyday meal, typically for lunch. The croque monsieur is labeled as a quick bar snack for the wealthy. This dish is described as a fancy grilled cheese, in that there's a lot more care and preparation, including a sauce and a fried egg, as well as higher quality bread and cheese than common in American cuisine. A dish I could compare this to would be an American-style grilled cheese. My high school French teacher used to call French food similar but better. I think what she meant was that it is elevated. This dish calls for a less common, perhaps fancier cheese, as well as a sauce made from scratch. It isn't just bread and sliced cheddar. The ingredients I used for this recipe were butter, flour, almond milk, ground nutmeg, bay leaves, butter bread, thinly sliced turkey, Gruyere cheese, cucumber, green onions, and eggs. I revised the recipe in a few different ways, mostly to add nutritional value, but also for taste preferences. I added a cucumber to the sandwich because it's a vegetable and I'm used to eating it in sandwiches. I also added green onion for garnish for added nutritional value. I added the egg on top, making it a croque madame for added protein. I changed the meat in the sandwich from ham to turkey because turkey is a bit healthier and I don't like the taste of ham. I also changed the bread from white bread to butter bread because I like the taste better. I changed whole milk in the sauce to almond milk because I don't drink milk. By changing the milk from whole to almond, I changed the fat content from 5 grams of saturated fat to 0.5 grams of polyunsaturated fat and 1.5 grams monounsaturated fat. This change is important because polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fat help reduce LDL, which is bad cholesterol, which in turn reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease. Adding an egg, making the dish a croque madame instead of a croque monsieur, adds 6 grams of protein, which is important because changing the milk reduced the protein count from the milk alone from 8 grams to 1 gram. I changed the meat from ham to turkey, which had many effects. It increased the protein from the meat alone from 9 grams to 10 grams and dropped the sugar from 3 grams to 0 grams. It also reduced the sodium from 570 milligrams to 490 milligrams, which is important because the HWO recommends less than 2,000 milligrams per day of sodium. This is an important reduction as sodium is one of the leading causes of cardiovascular disease. Changing the meat also reduced the saturated fat from 1 gram to 0 grams and increased iron from 2% to 4% of the daily value. Making sure to have iron in your diet is important because it's an essential mineral and the body needs it for growth and development. As a woman, it's perhaps more important than it would be for a man, as iron deficiency is the most common nutrient deficiency in women.